What's going on, people? It's your boy Rebirth here, bringing you my official review for Bleach, New Breaths from Hell, chapter number 1, in what we hope is the start of a new arc. Now, the way this review is going to work is I'm going to go through the chapter part by part, highlighting the important details, letting you know my thoughts about it, but I'm not going to necessarily break down everything because I do have 2 videos planned after this, which is going after the questions that we have, and then after that is theories for where we think the series should go from this point. Now, Bleach has been booming as of late, and absolutely so. I want you guys to enjoy all the content that you're getting, finding new creators, revisiting old creators, all of it. If you're here though, I would like to officially welcome you to Flame of Rebirth. I'm your host, Rebirth, and hopefully you guys stay for the long run. So if you like what you see, do hit the subscribe button, do the like button, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. But that's enough of that. Let's go into this review and talk about it, because Kubo has given us plenty reason to talk about Bleach. Let's get into it. This chapter begins with a beautiful color spread by Kubo. I was initially interested to know whether this chapter would be hand-drawn or digital, because right now we're in a weird phase in between eras where digital or hand-drawn, digital or hand-drawn. This is hand-drawn by Kubo. It looks absolutely amazing and I love him for it. The art, it looks like it's probably drawn and colored by Kubo. Everything's 100% Kubo, and I absolutely love him for that. The chapter kicks off with a little bit of a story. Now, as the story goes, apparently this narrator, who we don't know exactly who it is, we don't know just yet, but this narrator had 2 goldfish. One was big and one was small. The big one died and the narrator was sad, but over time the small one began to grow bigger and healthier, and at the end of it he thought to himself, it must have been a good thing that the big one died. We don't know who this narrator is, okay? We're not sure. After that, in the next scene, we see a fish flying through the air, but it's not just one fish. If you focus on the manga panel, you see one fish in frame, and you see the fin of the fish in front of it, so there are 2 fish. And also, the second thing, we don't know what type of fish it is. If this were a colored chapter, I could just tell whether it is a goldfish or not, because like it would be golden, it would be yellow, but we don't see, so we don't know what color it is. So I'm not so quick to say that this is a goldfish because the story said it was a goldfish. You know what I mean? The fish is soaring through the skies, and we cut to the Kurosaki clinic. In there is a room. Kazui is asleep. Orihime opens the door to look at Kazui, who's inside, and closes it, noticing that it's closed, but she thanks Kon. And then we find out that Kon is in the same room with Kazui, sleeping next to him or something. This is quite interesting for me, because Kon was there with Ichigo when Ichigo was young. The fact that Kon is being tasked or trusted with taking care or looking out for Ichigo's son Kazui is proof of the trust that Orihime and Ichigo have in Kon, and proof of the relationship between the 2 of them. So Kon is looking out for Ichigo's kid. That's cool. But as soon as Orihime closes the door, I don't know how much time passes, but in the next panel, Kazui's eyes are closed immediately after his eyes open. Now, you might not think anything of that, and maybe there's nothing there. Maybe I'm just grasping at straws here. But I do want to at least point this out to you, that typically, when someone's opening their eyes, it's, you know, a gradual open, you know, like closed, slowly open. It's not like, you don't do that, you know, it's not like, were you even asleep to begin with? And that's what happens to Kazui here, where even in manga, they would usually depict either the eyelids slowly opening, like if at least if they care, they'll just do that. But in this case, one panel, his eyes are closed. Immediately next, it's open. And he just gets up. He's already opened the window. He's about to jump out. So Kon asks Kazui where he's going, and he mentions that Kazui got into trouble the other day and made a promise to Orihime to behave. Now, if you think back to chapter 686 of Bleach, Kazui on the first page is sneaking around Hiyori's hideout. So we know that he's a little bit of a troublemaker, and he's really good at quick movement because he was able to run away, and Hiyori of all people couldn't, like, she couldn't see him. He just like dashed away or whatever. And so back to Kon and Kazui in the scene, Kazui said he made a promise, and so he's going to keep the promise he made first, and jumps out of the window. As he's jumping out the window and he's descending, you can see him activate his Shinigami abilities. However, there's something very different with the way Kazui operates. Number 1, Kazui does not need a Gikon gun like Kon or Chappie the Rabbit to separate his soul from his body. 2, Kazui does not need like Rukia's little like hand glove thing that she used in Ichigo back then. And number 3, Kazui does not separate his body from his Shinigami soul when he enters Shinigami form. It's all his body becomes the Shinigami. It's not separated, which is the first time we've seen that happen in the Bleach world as far as I'm concerned. So when Kazui lands on the fish and Kon jumps after him, Kazui makes a point to tell Kon that you could have just stayed in the room and told Orihime that you were asleep and I left. To which Kon says, oh shoot, you're right, I should have done that. Now, this makes me want to say something about Kazui's character. Between the fact that he's always running off to places, sneaking around, and very stubborn, because he is, like he doesn't want to listen, it seems, but he's not like a loud, like Naruto who's stubborn but loud. He's quiet, but he's also still just as stubborn, but he's also kind of witty. He's witty, and you can tell that he's a smart boy, which is interesting, to say the least, for Kazui's character. So Kazui and Kon then go and they see a plus. And in Bleach, there are different kinds of souls. There are different kinds of souls within Bleach. You got your pluses, your Jibakuras, your Sukuras, your Hollows, and things like that. This guy is a plus. He's a human who has died, and the Chain of Fate is assigned to the proper location, but it hasn't been emptied like it would for a Hollow. He's not attached to a location like a Jibakure. He's not attached to like a person or an emotion like a Sukire. He's just a plus. And so Kazui and this guy have a conversation, and the whole deal with this guy is that he looks old but tries to come off as a 15-year-old, which is kind of weird or whatever, but he's scared. And Kazui says, I can't come see you anymore. And at that point, the guy feels scared, but Kazui said, don't worry. I'll take you to a place where you won't be lonely. Now, at that point in time, and maybe I'm thinking too deep in this and maybe there's nothing here, but I'll let you guys decide that. At that point in time, Kubo shows a small panel to the left of the moon. It's a crescent moon, okay? And with a crescent moon, you know the idea. Moon's a circle, and then there's the crescent that's on it, but then the part that's not crescented, let me say, it's like dark or whatever. In the first, when the fish are flying through the air, Kubo does give us a look of the sky. You see the moon, and it's a crescent shaped. But the shading on it there, it's different from the shading here. I'll make sure to put it on screen so you guys see what I'm talking about. In the case after Kazui said that he's going to take him to a place where he won't be lonely, the shading on the dark side of the moon is much darker, almost as if it's like a lunar eclipse or something, where that side is like eclipsing the crescent. Again, I don't know if this has any bearings, I'm just pointing it out. So, Kazui leads them up some stairs towards the shrine, but not to the shrine. He goes to the left, through some bushes, and arrives at a glass clearing. Now, in the clearing, we do see a little bit of a, I don't know, a stone monument of some sort. I don't know, I can't make out what it is, I don't know. However, when you look at the grass in that area, I don't know if I'm thinking too much into this, or if it's just Kubo shading because it's night, but when you look at the grass, it almost feels like there's energy emanating from the grass. It's very strange, like black energy, black Ryotsu emanating from the grass. I don't know what's going on there. I have no idea. So Kazui claps his hand 3 times, bows twice, and claps again. When he claps his hand 3 times, an eyeball appears, and then 2 eyeballs appear who look at Kon, and Kon's scared, but Kazui, I don't know whether he can see them or not. All we know that he doesn't seem to care. After he bows twice and claps once more, a portal opens. Now, it looked like a Garganta to me based on what the inside looked like, I'll just tell you that. Because when you think back to Bleach and portals, you got the Senkaimon, and the first time we saw a Senkaimon being used, it was Renji after Byakuya had defeated Ichigo in the world of the living. He takes his Abimaru, sticks it into the air, and then turns it, and the Senkaimon opens. Or you have the Garganta used by the Hollows, where someone like Ukiura, he'll just like do this, and then it's basically like a rip in space. Space just opens. Alright, like an open void in space. This is different in that the mouth of the opening seems to have teeth, which is interesting, to say the very least. It's interesting because we've never seen that before. And when you think about the chapter, Howls from the Jaws of Hell, because we hear his portal opening has somewhat of like teeth on it, I wonder if there's any correlation. I really wonder. But not only that, as he opens the portal, you see about 4 or 5 hell butterflies. And the Kazui says, they're all in there. Everyone's waiting. And at that point, we cut to the title card and we go to the Soul Society. Now, where we pick up in the Soul Society, Kubo says this is 3 hours earlier, which is important because maybe what happens to Kazui here and whatever happens to Ichigo and Ko at the end of the chapter or whatever, maybe it coincides. Maybe there's a coinciding timeline. I have no idea, just putting it out there. So we're in the Soul Society, and the specific location we're in is called the Officer Mansion District. It's probably where the captains and lieutenants lived, which is something they didn't have before. But anyway, Ichigo goes to see Ikkaku. Ikkaku has a dojo, and so Ichigo is being trained by Ikkaku, the man who trained her father, which is kind of neat. They have a nice interaction. You get a feel for the kind of character Ichigo is, who is very, she's obnoxious, she's loud, she's vibrant, she's energetic, she's witty too. Pretty fine character, nothing too special in my opinion, but she's okay. Anyway, we also get to see Yumichika here, and then there's a little bit of, they're going back and forth, and Ikkaku does tease her in terms of the fact that she wants to go to the world of the living, and Ikkaku mentions that she wants to go see Ichigo's kid, and she's blushing, which is kind of funny because, like, we've not, whether it's the last chapter of Bleach or this one, Kazui hasn't shown any hint of interest in Ichigo whatsoever, but it looks like Ichigo is probably the one who has the feelings for him. Kazui's too busy being creepy, I guess. So anyway, moving on, we switch to Renji, who's on the phone with Ichigo, and they're discussing something called a Soul Funeral Festival. The Soul Funeral Festival is described as an old custom where it's performed 12 years after a captain's death, and Ichigo is meant to attend this ritual. The way that it works is that vice captains capture a hollow and kill it in front of the grave of the deceased captain. The captains attend the ceremony, and the vice captains catch the hollow. There's going to be a little bit of a mistranslation or misunderstanding between Renji and Ichigo because Ichigo doesn't go to the captain's one, he goes to the vice captain's one. However, apparently Ichigo in the world of the living is at Keigo's ramen shop, so Keigo got a ramen shop, just to put it out there. And it's just a bunch of funny things going back and forth, and Renji mentions that the captains who wanted Ichigo to attend are Rukia and Shinsui Kyotoku. Rukia then comes into frame, Rukia and Ichigo have a little bit of a conversation, and it's all fun. Kubo just wants you to get a feel for them interacting. My biggest LOL during this time was that they were teasing Ichigo about leaving Orihime home to do the dishes, which is, to me, that was kind of funny, because of course Ichigo was denying it, but it was funny still. So, during that time, Mayuri Kurotsuchi, with a new fit, with a new outfit, which Kubo always goes above and beyond for Mayuri, but Mayuri comes in, and it's a holographic image of Mayuri Kurotsuchi. He's not actually there, but he's also projecting himself to all the other barracks, telling them the lieutenants need to move out. Now, Kubo does establish that Mayuri and Kisuke have been busy building new technology for the Soul Society. Like right now, Renji's talking to Ichigo using some sort of soul communication device, which basically looks like an iPhone 12, is that the latest one? It basically looks like that. So the order from Mayuri is that the vice captains should head out. So one thing I should note before I keep going is that Renji did say that they had taken care of the Captain Commander's ritual like some time ago, and then they did Captain Unohana some time after that, and now it's Jushiro Ukitake's turn. If you're wondering why they finally called Ichigo for Jushiro Ukitake's ceremony, it's probably because within all these three characters, the one to whom shares the closest relationship with Ichigo is probably Jushiro, because Jushiro is the one who gave Ichigo the substitute combat pass, and Jushiro is also the one who presumably lied to Ichigo about its true function. So if Ichigo was going to go to anyone's funeral, it's probably Jushiro, just putting it out there. So anyway, Ichigo is coming home from seeing Ikkaku because Ikkaku has to go, so Ikkaku presumably told Ichigo to get out of there, and she overhears the conversation. She wants to go to the world of the living, and that's exactly what they do. But before we do that, we gotta go visit some other captains. We see a bunch of different captains. You see Toshiro, you see Kensei, you see Tetsuzaimon Iba, you see Lisa, you see a bunch of people. And we do get the introduction of one new character by the name Rindo Atao is his name, and he's presumably seen to be deaf, but he likes playing with animals, and so he has to go as well. So just putting that out there. And we do see Shuhei Isagi. He has a funny moment with Mayuri who shoots laser beams out of his eyes. It's all fun and games. It's all great. So we switch scenes to go to the world of the living, and Ichigo and Renji are having a conversation with the other lieutenants. Now, as I said before, there was a little bit of a misunderstanding because Ichigo was supposed to go to the captain's one, but he ended up coming to the vice captain's one. And as they're having a conversation, we do get a little bit of information. Number one, Ichigo apparently works as a translator, which is kind of funny. He's like a learned guy, which is cool. Rangiku talks about, well, I think, was it Rangiku or Renji? They're talking about going out for drinks, to which Ichigo obliges, which is very different from back then. Because I remember during the Fullbring arc, Ichigo was given alcohol by Ginjo or something, and he couldn't drink, but now he can. So our boy grew up. Beyond that, when you look at Ichigo, which I noticed, and I was actually happy about this, as Ichigo is standing there, he has his hands in his pocket, and it's very similar to when Ishin would have his hands in his pocket when he was talking to Ryukin. I'll make sure to put a picture of that on the screen. And combined with the fact that Ichigo's hairstyle is just like Ishin's now, the parallels are just killing me. It's crazy. So Renji introduces Rindo a towel, but he also introduces yet another lieutenant, the lieutenant of Lisa Yodomaru. And her name, because I was like, her name is Yu Yoyahara. Yu Yoyahara, which is like, Kubo, what are you doing? She's a gyro, like an e-girl or something. And when Ichigo learned that she's the lieutenant of Lisa, he was like, oh, that makes sense. You remember Lisa Yodomaru, one of the visors? She used to always be reading these dirty magazines or whatever. And apparently now the Soul Society are able to watch some channels from the world of the living, which is like, Lisa probably influenced Yoyahara into reading those magazines and watching these shows, which has then made her into this sort of gyro, whatever, eager or whatever. I don't like, bro, whatever. Okay, whatever. You guys get it. She tries to take a picture with Ichigo. It's just fun and games for now. So then Ichigo arrives, and I would like to know, when Ichigo arrives, we do see a Hell Butterfly, and so my assumption is that Ichigo used a Senkaimon to get there. Now, as she's standing there, she sees that there's a creature behind Ichigo and Renji, but they don't seem to notice it. So she screams out, "Father!" Renji notices that Ichigo's there, and then immediately the creature slams Renji into the bunch of buildings. Ichigo focuses up, draws his arm back to him, and just cuts off his arm and everything. And they notice that there's a bunch of them, okay? One lieutenant gets low diffed like right out the gate. I think she's like from squad 4 or something. Embarrassing. Like, this is embarrassing. She gets low diffed already. So Ikaku and the others engage in battle. First we have Rindo, because now we get to see a lot of people in action. First, Rindo. Now Rindo can't talk. What he does is he writes on his sword. And I think I have what he says. He writes on the sword, roughly translating to give birth. And then we see paper angels, like paper, I don't know what you call those things, like paper figures or whatever. And we see on screen, we see Hawk. Hawks hit the paper angels, turn into hawks, and they go after the hollow. But the moment they pass by it, it's like they've completely turned this hollow into nothing but bones and blood. As the hollow's falling down, Yu Yoyahara, oh my god, Kubo, she's running up the spine of the hollow. With every step, she's cracking some bones. She jumps up. She has nails, or like her nails are like long or whatever. Bro, I don't know what, fake nails, acrylics, I think is what they call. Anyway, so her nails are long. She does something like this, and then she says like "Gao," and there's somewhat of like a wolf behind her. It reminds me of the Wolf Fang Fist. Maybe Kubo is giving homage to one of the goats of the manga era, Toriyama Akira, and she basically just like claws the head off. 2 strikes, it's done. We see Akon, who was a part of the research and development group, fight as well. He takes out like a little, I guess, cylinder, like a small cylinder, and he like pours it, and then when the hollow steps into it, its legs disintegrate. And he's saying something like 22775. I don't know what that is. When he says melt, it melts. And then another hollow tries to attack him. When someone attacks it from above, we find that out to be Kita. Izuru Kita is in action. Alright, he's supposed to be a cyborg. I'm assuming he's still a cyborg because that's what they had to do to keep him alive. But he is here, and he is fighting. So then, Renji is preparing to go back into the battle after making sure Ichigo is safe. But then behind him, a portal begins to open. Now, 2 things I want to note about this portal. Number 1, it seems to be dark energy emanating from this portal, dark Ryotsu, which to me feels very similar to what was happening with Kazui with the grass. Not only that, there are hell butterflies. So right now, Kazui, there was hell butterflies there, and a portal. Here, there's yet another portal, and there's hell butterflies, and there's dark energy in both situations. What's going on? We are about to find out, because the one who steps out of this portal is Szayelaporro, former Espada numbers 8. I almost said 6, that's Grimjaw. Former Espada number 8, Szayelaporro. He's here to see Renji, to visit him on this auspicious day. He does note as to where Uryu is, to which Uryu doesn't make an appearance in this chapter at all, which is fine, because there's a lot of things going on as is. He reveals that he fell to hell, and I actually want to read his verbatim. He says, "You are unleashed from the yoke of a hollow, and your hold is removed to the outside of your body, from inside to outside of your body." So Szayelaporro's hollow hole is now outside of his body. And when you look at all the other people that the lieutenants were fighting, all of them had like these whole things on the outside. So the assumption here is all these beings are hollows in Hell whose holes were removed from internal to external. That's what I think, anyway. He asks Renji who Ichigo is because Ichigo is scared. Renji doesn't answer, and then he says that's okay. The Warden of Hell is all-seeing. Now, this is interesting here because he does say the Warden of Hell is all-seeing, and then proceeds to know exactly who the girl is, as in it's Renji's daughter. And so when he says that the Warden of Hell is all-seeing, it's two things here. Either he's talking to himself, as in, if you don't tell me, that's fine, because I am all-seeing, and then proceeds to prove it by naming Ichigo, or he's referencing another person who debriefed him before he appeared, just making that point. I'm not sure which of the two it is. Renji tries to get away because you can't fight Szayelaporro with Ichigo here, so he does try to get away, but as he's running away, Szayelaporro attacks with the hell chains, which pierce his body, but before they do any extensive serious damage, Ichigo comes through and slashes off the chains with one swing. Ichigo has Zangetsu, as an old Shikai Zangetsu slash new Bankai Tensou Zangetsu slash Kubo. Can you explain, because we have no idea what is going on with Ichigo's power? What is this? Explain. Where's the tool? Where's the dual wield? Is this his released state? Is this his sealed state? I don't know. Even if we assume we know, it's not confirmation. Kubo, just explain it, bro. Please. Anyway, Ichigo doesn't know who the heck Szayelaporro is. Alright. Szayelaporro's like, I don't need to kill you right now because there's no merit in doing so, but I'll do it anyway. And Ichigo's like, who the hell are you? I don't know you. Which is interesting because technically they never met. That's funny. That's very funny. We then switch back to Soul Society. The captains are standing in front of Kyotoku's grave, and there's just all of them. Kenpachi, everyone is there. But then there just seems to be these black liquid particles floating in the air. Soifon actually touches it and feels it. He's like, what is this? Is it Reishi not returning? Is it just, floating there? At that point, Kyotoku uses his blade to slash it. And when he slashes it, Kubo makes sure to point out that the liquid particle is sizzling, and then he calls it a will-o-wisp from hell. Now, what's a will-o-wisp? Will-o-wisps, and I have it here. Will-o-wisps seem to be ghost lights seen by travelers at night, and it misleads them. Metaphorically, it refers to a hope or goal that leads someone on but never sees them reach that goal, or rather leads them to finding something completely different. This is probably going to mean something we're going to come back to it later on. However, as we are there, Shinsui then out of the blue says he'd like to talk to them about a superstition. And then he goes into a conversation which might be one of my highlights of the chapter. Shinsui talks about something called a rei, or I'm just going to call it ray, okay, because I don't want to say rei, that's like hard, ray, a ray. What's a ray? Apparently, Rei is a unit of measurement that measures the concentration of Ryatsu that resides in Reishi. Average members of the Gotei have a Rei of 20. Vice captains vary between 5 and 4, and captains have a 3 and up. This is interesting. The Rei scale is what I'm going to call it. I was especially interested during this part because it's like, Bleach has never really had these things, like, in Dragon Ball, you got the Scouters. Even on Natsuto no Taza, you had power levels. Jujutsu Kaisen, you had, like, the different special grades, grade 1, grade 2, and whatnot. Kubo had finally given us something similar to those scales called the Rei scale. Moving on, though, with Shinsui's monologue exposition dump, which is great, by the way, I loved it. He explains that Soul Reaper bodies are made of Reishi, and so when they die, the Reishi returns, their body converts to Reishi and returns to the Earth of the Soul Society. People were wondering whether they mean Earth as in Soul Society as Earth. I think they just mean, like, back into nature. It just gets absorbed back into nature, simply put, I think. However, characters or Reishi of grade 3 and up cannot naturally return into the Earth of the Soul Society, which is why we have the funeral festival, the Soul Funeral Festival. That's supposed to be what allows these grade 3 and higher to then be incorporated into the Earth of the Soul Society. So that's what's taught in the Soul Reaper Academy. Then Shinsui makes a point. This is what the superstition is. According to Shinsui, he says, ratio of grade 3 and higher can never return to the Soul Society, but we cannot leave that level of Ryatsu to remain in the Soul Society, and so instead, they are sent down to hell by way of the Soul Funeral Festival. The interesting thing here, though, is that Kubo doesn't have Shinsui exactly say those words. It cuts to Szayelaporro in the world of the living saying send down to hell. As in, the idea here is Szayelaporro was telling Ichigo, and Kubo, for dramatic effect, maybe wanted Szayelaporro to deliver that news. So Kubo doing this basically creates the situation where Shinigami technically never really said those words, number one. And then number two, maybe Szayelaporro is lying. Basically, that's what this creates. But let's move on. So Szayelaporro explains that a price must be paid for attaining your level of strength. Souls that have lost a place to return because of the immense power they sought are saved by being put into hell. Soul Reapers have been sending their comrades down to hell the entire time. Those are his words, which is crazy. Soul Reapers have been sending their comrades down to hell the entire time. Back in Soul Society, Rukia I think she's grabbing Shinsui's coat, saying, "Tell me it's not true. Have you really been sending our comrades to hell?" We then cut back to Szayelaporro, and I had to take a lot of notes here because Szayelaporro does say a lot of things that are important, and I don't want to skip these things. He says, and I have to quote this, he says, "The fact that I am here means balance has been broken." Quick little tangent, I love the name, like, a balance breaker. I think one of the characters in High School DxD are the ones who had, like, the balance breaker. Like, just the name. It's a cool name. Balance breaker. Anyway, the tremendous reality that was keeping the mouth of hell in check, Aizen Sosuke, has disappeared. After U-Haul vanished, you guys sent tremendous reality down to hell one after the other, allowing the mouth of hell to open from hell's side. The founder of the Gote 13, Yamamoto Genryusai, the Blade of Death, Unohana Retsu, and now the Divine Vow, Jushiro Ukitake. This blew my mind. If you saw the reaction, you know what I'm talking about. This blew my mind. This just blew my mind. Aizen Sosuke, if Szayelaporro is telling the truth, Aizen Sosuke, just by existing, has been indirectly protecting all of Soul Society and the world at large. Period. That's crazy. After Yuha died, they then sent 3 legit captains to hell. Founder of the Gote 13, Yamamoto Genryusai, the Blade of Death, Retsu Unohana, and the Divine Vow, Jushiro Ukitake. However, as he was about to say Jushiro's name, a door of hell appears behind him, opens, and Jushiro's Soyo no Kotowari's Zanpakuto runs Szayelaporro through. However, the sword looks massive. This is like, it's a massive sword, and it's definitely Soyo no Kotowari, definitely for sure, but it's huge. What happened? It's crazy. Now Ichigo is like, I'm sure Ichigo, who had now been told what it was going on by Szayelaporro, is like, the trial's not over. And then Szayelaporro maintains that you just slaughtered these ghouls in front of Jushiro Ukitake. Now, couple things. Number one, the fact that he calls them ghouls lets us know this new concept. Ghouls. Ghouls are hollows who, I guess ghouls are hell hollows whose hollow holes. Oh my god. Oh my god, the alliteration is killing me. Ghouls are hell hollows whose hollow hole has been taken from the internal to external. Wow, that's hilarious. And so we know these are ghouls is what they're called. And then the second thing here is, when he says that you slaughtered them in front of Jushiro Ukitake, I'm like, okay, we're supposed to have done that at the grave, and the grave is in Soul Society, so what are we talking about here? There are 2 options. Number one is that the Hell Gate was like right there the entire time but couldn't be seen, and since Soyo no Kotowari came from there, Jushiro was in there. It's just that, to me, I don't think that should be the case, because he wouldn't have gone to hell until the ritual was completed. So he couldn't have been there until the end, if you understand what I mean. And so the second option is to substitute Soul Reaper Badge, the Combat Pass. The Combat Pass was given by the concept of the Combat Pass was thought of by Jushiro Ukitake, given to Ichigo. And so maybe it's not necessarily have to do with the place, which is the graveyard, because all a graveyard is like, this is the place we have designated as a remembrance of who you are. And so in this case, the fact that to Ichigo, the Combat Pass was given to him by Jushiro Ukitake is much more or less synonymous with Jushiro. Maybe that's what did it, because Kubo makes sure to highlight that Ichigo has the Combat Pass in his pocket. Very interesting. Very interesting. So before he leaves, he asks Ichigo, hell has always been nearby. Haven't you ever wondered why hell butterflies have hell in their name? And with that, the door is shut, the door is closed, and one of the skeletons that's on the gate, one of his eyes open. It's like eyes form, and then the other one is beginning to form, and it looks very similar to the eyes that we saw with Kazui at the beginning of the chapter. Mind blown. This chapter was mind-blowing in different ways. The characterization of Kazui Kurosaki. Kubo was in a very precarious position in what to do with Ichigo's kid, and so far he has done everything right. Kazui Kurosaki is so compelling, and the characterization, which is how Kubo shows us what type of person he is, it's subtle. It's very, very subtle, and I enjoy what's going on here. He is doing things that seem morally bankrupt with an innocent look on his face. His moral compass seems skewed. Something's wrong with him. Something's clearly wrong with him. When you see the last page of the chapter, you have a look at his face. He's smiling. But that's the smile that you get from Luck from Black Clover when you know things like when you know it's about to go down and it's time for you to forfeit and run away. He looks like Luck from Black Clover. The eyes, I mean. Like, he looks like something's wrong with him. Something ain't right with this dude. Clearly. Clearly. And in many ways, I think this was the best choice to make. You didn't want to make him a copy of Ichigo, and you don't necessarily want to make him like a clear opposite, because people will say that, oh, he's just the opposite of Ichigo. By making Kazui calm, collected, reserved, doesn't speak a lot, he's not loud, he's stubborn, he's witty, he's smart, he's powerful, and he has a flawed moral compass where it may not even be that he's just evil, but rather he doesn't think it's evil, because to him it's like interesting. Those are the ones you gotta be scared of. Those are the guys you gotta worry about. Beyond that, the plot progression here is staggering, really. The concept of the raised scale, it, to me anyway, casts a very different light on all the characters and all the concepts in Bleach, because now you have to wonder, with the revelation the captains are being sent to hell, makes you wonder, did Yu Habak know about this, and is that why he didn't want to go to hell? Because he would have had a ray of 3 and up, and if he died, he would have gone to hell. With Aizen, did he know that? Who knew about these things? Who didn't know? Yamamoto is the individual who founded the Shinyo Academy. Now, none of the Royal Guard make an appearance, and they weren't even mentioned. Ichibe Hyosube is supposed to be the leader of all Shinigami. What part does he play in this? I have no idea. But to talk about, just to go back and talk about the characters who are now on Hell's side or whatever. Basically, the way that I understand it is that Aizen is now a Mukin, which means he's in a different dimension, which means his Ryotsu, and he's also bound. Like, his Ryotsu is not interfering or is not applicable to the natural world as it stands. Yu Habak's dead, and his corpse is being used as the balancer, as the Soul King. Alright? Yamamoto died, Unohana died, Jushiro died. You've lost 5 powerhouses, and now they've gone to Hell's side, and now, when you look at the analogy at the beginning, which is about the goldfish, one's big, one's small. Big one dies, small one is able to become healthier because of it. It's an analogy, it's the connection here between the two of them is that Hell would be the small fish, and Earth, I suppose, or Soul Society would be the big fish. But then as the big fish in Soul Society keep dying and crossing over, now Hell's growing stronger and stronger and stronger. And this presents a very, very serious dilemma to all these characters. What are you going to do? You cannot live forever. Are all of these characters doomed to spend eternity in hell? That's frightening. Someone in the comment section of my last video mentioned that the way in which Kubo has treated these captains is very similar to the ideology, or I guess the dark side of being a veteran, where these soldiers, these men and women, these brave men and women give their lives in defense of society only to meet proverbial hell once they come back. Like, the price you give them, the gift and the payment you give these individuals for sacrificing their life in defense of you is damnation and hell. Like the veterans, in the same way the Soul Reaper captains, twisted. And so I'm not going to go into too much of a theory making, because I'm sure the video is already long as is. I'm going to have 2 videos after this. The first one is going to focus on the questions and possible answers based on this chapter, and the one after that is going to go into theories for where and what we would like Kubo to go into moving forward. But there are going to be 2 things I'm going to say before I get out of here. 2 things. Number 1, Kubo, you know I love you, bro. Please don't make this into a rescue arc. I understand that between the Soul Society arc and the Arrancar arc, the kidnapping of the human Rukia has story purpose. It's not just a rehash. People think it is, it's not. There's a point too that Aizen is playing to his opponent's strength. That much is true. However, I think that doing it a third time would be overkill, so I hope that Kubo does not do that. Just by the mere fact that every captain right now of grade 3 and higher will go to hell when they die, there's enough reason for you to want to do something about hell. Whether it means going in there to do something yourself, that's fine. Just don't turn this into a rescue arc. Number 2, I've seen people say this and I don't think that it should happen. Do not find a way to make Ichigo half ghoul or half hell or whatever. It doesn't need, no, you don't need it. You genuinely don't need it. You don't need it. Keep it this way. Keep it this way. And the final thing I'll say before I get out of here is that I'm going to go into more detail in the next 2 videos, but Kubo has a chance to bring back characters who didn't get enough shine and give them something. Like, Kubo has an opportunity. I'm not so sure how the Ray affects Hollows and Quincy, because we only know how much it affects specifically Shinigami, so we're not exactly sure yet. But we'll talk about it in the coming videos because there's a lot to break down concept-wise. But what if Ulquiorra is able to come back? What if Stark is able to come back? What if Cayenne is able to come back? Just saying. But just in the general sense, Kubo has an opportunity to bring back certain characters, and maybe it'll be good, maybe it'll be bad, but I'm here for it all the way. Kubo had a job to do. He needed to excite old fans and make new fans, and he's done both. He needed to give Kazui Kurosaki a personality of his own, and he has. He needed to give us a reason to care about Bleach in 2021, and even though we the fans wanted to, now the entire world has a reason to care about Bleach. If this comes out in manga form, which it should, like just one, I'm going to buy the heck out of it, and people will buy that. I will buy it. And this is just more content for the anime that's coming. Bleach fans, we're eating good. In my opinion, this was a 10 out of 10 chapter. Pacing was good. Characterization was good. Plot progression was good. There were very little battles, which is fine, because this was a setup. This was a setup chapter. And now, the premise is set. We're about to go in, and I'm excited. This is your boy Rebirth. If you like this, please like, comment, and subscribe for more content. We're about to eat good, people. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.